voice of the Troubleshoot, where we do exactly that. Welcome to Troubleshoot. I'm your host, Divya Rajan. Last week we explored the challenges young ethnic people face in regards to keeping a balance between their cultures at home and the cultures that surround them in North America. This time I want to explore the perspective of parents from this community. So first we have Miss Anu Watts. Now with us we have Miss Anu Watts. Welcome, Ms. Watts. Today we're discussing about what it's like for ethnic youth to keep a balance in their culture at home and in Canada. And today I want to look at it from the perspective of a parent. So my first question to you, is it important for you, for your child to have a balance between perhaps their Indian culture and their culture in Canada?
Definitely, it's very important for the children to strike a balance between the two cultures. Most of the cultures have basic values, so I would encourage my child to, within the realm of the basic values of the Indian culture, by all means go out and explore and embrace the best of values in the other culture. But at the same time, synchronization between the two cultures is very important for me, and we would need to set some boundaries as to what is acceptable, what is not acceptable.
Right, that's a very good point. I think that's the main concern of most parents is what is acceptable and what is not. And I think the biggest issue for children is to know which is acceptable in which culture. So as a parent, is it easy for you to accept that maybe your child has different views than you?
Yes, definitely. Children, we talk about the terrible teens over here or anywhere in the world. Yes. Children, when they are growing up, they learn to verbalize their opinions, and which is by all means very fair, as long as they are very respectful and they have rationalized their views. Yes, definitely they should be able to speak up. And sometimes it may not go down well with us as parents, but again, a constant dialogue is very important. We need to agree to disagree, but at the same time respect each other's view. As a parent, many a times I felt that I was not on the same page with my child, but I had to give myself some time to understand her point of view. I mean, if she learned something from me, I have learned as a parent a lot from her too.
That's a really good point you say. I think a lot of children watching this haven't seen it this way. You know, often talking to their parents can be daunting, especially thinking your parents are going to disagree with you. But this point you bring up of keeping a constant dialogue really helps, knowing that there is a chance that your parents will see your view, and also to understand that you have to respect their view at the same time. So right. My next question to you is, what's the most challenging aspect of this cultural gap? I know a lot of children have a very hard time understanding their parents' point of view just because they grew up differently and around different things. So what is it like from the point of a parent?
So I'll talk in terms of an example. When my daughter was in high school, 9th grade, she wanted to go for a competition to America. For me, it was so hard to give her the nod to go ahead because I was very protective about her. So what I did next was invited few of my friends from the same culture over to my place and just brought up the issues, and I was surprised about what my friends had to say. And for that matter, I discussed the same issue with my own mom. Again, that's a generation gap, and all of them unanimously said, yeah, go ahead, give her the chance. And I guess most of the time we tell our children not to do something because we are afraid of what the people might think, what the repercussions might be, but having that input much before I did something is better than having the input later on. And I guess support from members of our own community works well. So
that's a very good point. I think it's very responsible to go seek other people's opinions, even though in our culture often we tell ourselves we need to keep our business to ourselves. This is not anyone else's problem. But this really, in your situation, shows that that can be beneficial to parents. So right. What's another way parents can help kids feel that they're allowed to embrace these other traditions, the same way that parents are a little afraid I feel children are often afraid to even ask for these opportunities because they just assume their parents would not be okay with it.
So, like every parent, I like to lecture my child, but children are in no mood for lectures, okay? Some children, every child has a different learning ability, different learning styles. Some people will like blindfoldly agree to whatever the parents say, or they'll pretend they agree to it, but they have another face behind their back. Some children, they learn from their experiences. We need to be a little bit more open minded and let them, have their own experiences, but at the same time talk to them about our own experiences. Life wasn't a bed of roses for us as well, so we had ups and downs, and sometimes it's good to share our ups and downs with our children, not give them the impression that, oh, I was such a good child, I never did anything wrong. Yes, I made mistakes, and maybe like share our experiences, and but at the same time let them make their own experiences, because what you learn out of your own experiences are the best experiences.
I would like to expand on that a bit. I think that's a very good point, and I really want my audience to take that home with them. Is that if parents listening today can share your experiences honestly with your children, instead of giving the impression that you were this perfect child, it very much humanizes your parents and gives that bond of trust between parent and child. What advice can you give parents that are maybe having a hard time accepting that their child is seeing things differently than maybe they are?
So basically, sometimes it's better to go with the flow, okay? At other times, it's better to nip the issues in the bud. So again, whatever I feel comfortable with, I would let my child do. But then again, every child is just different, every situation is different, we as parents are different. Sometimes as parents also, when the child is growing, something that was awkward for me when I was growing, in the Canadian culture the same things don't happen. Like a child staying out late at night would is unacceptable in the Indian culture, but in Canadian culture, it's fine. In the Indian culture, like when a child has their birthday, we like to host parties. We invite everybody. But in the Canadian culture, like children, they invite everybody to a restaurant. Everybody does the Dutch payment. So yes, things might be different. But at the same time, like I am still not used to the Dutch payment. So let me continue to do what I want to do. But at the same time, I shouldn't hamper my child from going out and doing what the Canadian culture says. So again, letting them experiment, letting them embrace, giving them a little bit of freedom, but at the same time, as long as they are coming back to you or they are talking to you, and I must say the Canadian kids, they are very honest, and we should kind of value their honesty. And if they are honestly coming and telling us everything, we should applaud them for that.
I really like that. I think this is what I want, the change in our culture. Instead of hiding things from your parents and keeping this sort of secret identity, to be able to talk to your parents and not feel judged, not feel scared. How can we, this question is similar to one I asked you before, but let me explain a little bit, is how can we make the environment for the child comfortable? Often when a parent wants to disagree, it can turn into an argument. So how can we make that argument into a constructive conversation?
So, first of all, we should encourage a dialogue right from a very young age. When I used to watch a show or a movie with my child, or for that matter, read a story to my child, I would stop midway and ask, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Like, what do you think the story is going to, the way it is going to proceed? And then I would ask her, why does she think so? So then that lets her develop analytical skills. As long as they are able to rationalize what they want to do, uh, It's okay. It's okay. But at the same time, I would encourage the children that we as parents are not their enemies. You give your point of view, you take my point of view, and let's meet somewhere midway. So we agree to disagree, but at the same time, we come up with a solution.
Right, that's also a very good point, to acknowledge that just because your parent is disagreeing with you, it doesn't mean they're trying to be your enemy, and reacting with anger may not be as productive as you want it to be. Thank you for such insightful points. I really enjoyed speaking to you today, and we really hope to have you back on the show soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Welcome back. Now we have Ms. Diljit Bhatti joining us. Welcome, Ms. Bhatti. Please tell us about yourself.
Hi, Divya. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come here today. I am Diljit Bhatti and I'm a settlement worker. I work with newcomers and refugees and I help them make their settlement plans.
Well, welcome to our show. Today we're talking a little bit about what it's like for children to keep a balance between their Canadian culture and their culture at home. But today I want to look at it from the perspective of a parent. So my first question to you is it important for your child to keep a balance with your culture at home and the culture in Canada?
Yes, definitely. As we belong to both the cultures now, being immigrants, I definitely would like my child to have a balance. But that balance does not mean that I don't want my child to learn new things in Canada or forget totally about their Indian culture. I will definitely like them to have a balance as to adopt to the new and great values of Canadian culture, like education, like equality of gender, equality in employment, and good social skills. But at the same time, I don't want them to forget about the good values of India's culture, like respect, like language, like food culture. So, and especially with the language, because I feel that language is something which connects you to all diverse communities over here, because that is one of the ways that you can connect and you can also develop professionally, even though you are in Canadian culture.
I think you make very good points there. I think a lot of the time when parents think of two cultures colliding, we often think of the negative connotations of that. But there are positive connotations to Canada, like gender equality and so on, like you said, and also really positive connotations with our culture as respect and our family values. So my second question to you is, as a parent, is it easy accepting your child may have different views than you?
I would say that it can be a challenge, but it depends on situations, on circumstances, on the event where you are having that opinion, right? If I look from cultural point of view, most of the parents, I don't think it is right or wrong. I think it is more an ego problem with the parents, where they think that we are parents and because we are older and we have more experience in life, so we know better than kids. But I don't believe that that is true. I think it becomes very hard when we think like that to be able to respect the opinion of our children. When I came to Canada, my children were much younger, and my parenting style was very different because I was going through my own challenges, through my own struggles. I had my own fears and insecurities, and with those things, my parenting was very different. I wanted my children at that time to listen to me more than I listened to them. But as we grew in Canadian society, and as I feel that I'm more settled now, and children are also grown up, I have become actually more a friend to them. And listening to their opinions and learning from them, I have embraced it very gracefully. And I feel that that is a very good thing to do as parents, because you build your trust when you are listening to your children's opinion. And it has become less difficult for me by doing that to be able to accept their opinions.
I think that's a very good point, and especially where you bring up that when you first got here, you were going through your own struggles. I think a lot of children need to hear that, because it's often easy for us to forget that our parents are individuals with their own opinions and experiences. But I also like that you brought up that you adapted and changed over time and that it benefited you, because I think a lot of the time, as you said, there is an ego and there is this, I'm always right because I'm a parent. And it's okay to accept that sometimes maybe my child can teach me something different. So thank you for bringing that up. So my third question to you is, what is the most challenging aspect of the culture gap?
When I came to Canada, sorry about that. When I came to Canada, my daughters were 10 and 6. So it was not easy, and with the struggles, as I mentioned before, that there were so many struggles and challenges as a newcomer. And they were all of a sudden into a new culture, new society, right? So it was not easy for them and it was not easy for me. And every incident that was happening was not aligned to Indian culture. They were more getting towards Canadian culture. And to most of the aspect, I don't think that I found anything difficult to adapt to. I tried my best to change as much as I could to their priorities, because I always felt that as a parent, it was my decision to bring them to Canada. It was not their decision to come. So when I uprooted them, I could not penalize them for that. So I always felt it as my responsibility to change myself more than changing them and putting hardships on them. But at the same time, there was one thing that has always been a challenging aspect for me, even though I understand that aspect, and that is like live-in relationship. So when my daughter got engaged, she wanted to go into a live-in relationship with her fiance. And it was very, very difficult for me to give that permission to her, because I think it is so embedded in my childhood values, in my cultural values, that it was very hard for me to accept that she's going to live with someone before marriage. And even though I understand and I'm very open-minded, but still, I don't know, it is because of the norms of the society or norms of the family that I'll have to maybe answer so many people, and maybe I have that fear. I'm still not sure about that, but I don't think that I'm ready even for my younger daughter to accept that thing. And sometimes I feel from my side that maybe it is not good, but I am still not able to make myself accepting that fact. And that is one of the biggest challenges that I felt as my children were growing up, that I could not accept live-in relationship. I don't know, maybe when I'll have grandkids, I'll be more open to that idea. But at this moment, I still feel that is one of the challenging aspects of culture for me.
You know, it's very hard to change a core belief like that one, and it's okay to have this belief, especially, you know, being open-minded is easy, but when it's your own child, it's very different. And it's like you said, there is this always pressure in the communities. What are people going to say to me? How am I going to answer these questions? And especially when you don't know how to answer these questions for yourself, how am I going to answer this to anybody else? But the fact that you are thinking about it and trying to see the perspective of your daughter and accepting that, you know, this is a part of culture here, instead of immediately shutting it down and thinking this is wrong, shows a lot of growth. And I hope parents watching this today can maybe think, maybe I should give it a second and think maybe this will grow on me. And I'm sure your daughter would be very happy to hear that. My next question to you is, how can parents help kids feel like they're allowed to embrace more of their traditional culture, but more than their traditional culture? Because I know a lot of children feel that they'll be in trouble if they try new things.
In my family, I don't see that happening, but what my suggestion to parents would be that they should let their children exposed to Canadian culture through watching TV shows, Canadian TV shows, participating into cultural events like, for example, Santa Parade while they are little kids, right? Because learning has to start from early age. It cannot start from when they're already teenagers, right? And also, if they are able to teach them how to read and how to find Canadian history, Canadian literature, because if I, as an Indian, think that I have a lot of good values in Indian culture, Canadian culture is full of good values as well. So it is just about time for us to find in that, right? And as I said before, that we brought our children to Canada, then we should not be forcing them to do something that they want to learn new, because it is very hard for children to adopt both the cultures, and they are facing that pressure because of their parents. So we, as a parent, I think it is my responsibility that I should not put that pressure on my children, and I should let them grow in the community that I brought them to. And I have seen, and I'll give you some examples. Like I have seen some people saying to their children that मैं तेरे ना गल नहीं करनी जेकर तू पंजाबी च नहीं मेरे ना बोलेगा ते, right? So I think that is being very hard to your children, because they are new to this country, they want to learn new language, and if we are not going to provide them support, then where are they going to go for support, right? So I feel that it is very important for them to let their children embrace the new culture where we have brought them in.
I really like the point of the language that you just brought up. My personal experience was that is my parents very much encouraged me to speak English and learn English, but I did have friends that had that rule that if you don't speak to me in Punjabi or you don't speak to me in Hindi, I will not respond to you. And this made it very difficult for these kids at school trying to learn the second language. And if they make a mistake or if they have an accent, they're ridiculed at school. And I think that's something that parents don't know or don't understand, that if we don't have a great grasp on this language, we will be shunned and we will be treated like an outsider. So I do really appreciate that you brought that up. My fifth question to you is, what advice can you give parents that are having a hard time accepting that their child is different and maybe aren't there yet to be open?
I think most of the parents, their practice is to be parents. And for that reason, they shut the doors of communication with their children. So my, I would say a suggestion to the parents is to be more open to your kids. Don't judge them. Appreciate and acknowledge them for every little thing that they do. Don't make them feel embarrassed if they don't want to do something. Like, you know, in our culture, I would say our culture because I am more acquainted to my culture, right? So one of the things that we do is that our child is like 4 or 5 years old, and there is an uncle and auntie coming to the house, and we are like, oh, my child knows part, my child knows poems, she just learned an essay, she is going to say in front of everybody, and the child is shy, and parents force them to still do it. And this way they don't realize that they are actually discouraging their child. They are not boosting their confidence. They are rather lowering their or bringing their self-esteem low, right? And which is going to go a long way, and it will be so hard for them to be on the stage and present themselves. So these little things the parents need to learn, that they need to have respect for their child's opinion. They should not be forcing their child to do something in front of others, and they should be appreciating them. Like, it is very embarrassing for parents to see that, oh, my child drew a girl and a boy or a tree, and they are just scribbling on the paper, and they feel so embarrassed to show it instead of appreciating the child and raising their self-esteem. So I would say that as parents, it is our duty to have an environment where we can build an environment of trust and support for the child, where whenever the child needs, they can come to the parent rather than depending on an outsider who can actually abuse them and manipulate them. Because I don't think that there can be any better support than a family. And even if a child makes mistake, as a parent, you have the right to be annoyed at them or angry at them, but don't be angry to the extent that they have to go outside and find support for themselves. So be playful with them, be sometimes their friends, don't just be their parents. and spend quality time. And when I'm saying quality time, does not mean that, oh, I'm a housewife and I'm home whole day with my child. That is not spending quality time. Quality time is when you are doing something of the interest of your child, when you are participating in a communication and a conversation with your child, and you are not forcing your opinion on them, and you're listening to them actively.
That's a good point.
I would say that is my solution to it.
In a lot of these examples, you make a point, is this dialogue that's missing from the situation. And that's very good tips for parents. I would like to look at it from the other perspective. How can we make it an environment to let kids know that they can come and talk to us without being scared? How can a parent let their child know that it's okay to come and tell me these things?
Build an environment of trust. Ask open-ended questions to your kids. Don't be harsh in your language. And even if child comes and tells that they have made a mistake, accept the child with the mistake. It is okay to tell them that they have done something wrong, but then embrace them and let them know that it is okay to make a mistake. Because even if we reflect back in our childhood, it is not that we were perfect kids. We all made mistakes, right? I'll share a funny example with you that sometimes I would pretend to yell at my daughter, and then I'll turn my back towards her, because she knows that I'm laughing now, because she knows that maybe I also did something similar and now I'm laughing, but I'm just pretending to be a parent at that moment. So that way, I think we should build up a very trustworthy environment with our children where they feel supported and where they feel that they can go and talk to parents for anything that they have a problem in their life. We should not be forcing our children to be just doctors, lawyers, and engineers. It is okay to be an ECE teacher, or it is okay to be a plumber, or it is okay to be in a construction business. For Indian people, it's very important to have these three streams in the family, and we should not be comparing our kids. Even if they're siblings, like I have two daughters, I cannot compare both of them because they are totally different personalities. So I cannot say that one is good in this and you are bad, but then she is good in that and the other one is bad in something else, right? So we cannot compare our kids to our family and friends, or our siblings, or their siblings, or in neighborhood, because every child cannot come first in the class. Every child has their own strengths and weaknesses. So always encourage your child. If you want your child to come and talk to you, then encourage your child rather than discouraging, and boost their self-esteem and confidence. They will come to you and they will talk to you.
These are all very good points. Thank you so much for your insight today, and I look forward to having you back on the show soon.
Thank you, Divya, so much for having me today and giving me this opportunity. I'm looking forward to have another show with you. Thank you.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
काव्या होम्यो केयर, काफी इलाज जहां बेअसर हो जाते हैं, वहां से शुरू होता है होम्योपैथी का असर। बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक, नए से लेकर कई पुरानी बीमारियों तक, जैसे एलर्जीज, एस्मा, आर्थराइटिस, हेयर लॉस, स्किन डिसऑर्डर्स, माइग्रेन्स, मेल या फीमेल हेल्थ इश्यूज, डाइजेस्टिव डिसऑर्डर्स या पाइल्स, मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज, हार्ट प्रॉब्लम, डायबिटीज, और फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्यूट और क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस, हमारे होम्योपैथ से मिले, जिनको 20 साल का लंबा तजुर्बा है। काव्या होम्यो केयर, जहां से शुरू होता है हेल्दी लाइफ का सफर। 6477602779 काव्या होम्यो केयर।
जिंदगी मुश्किल तो है। मंगल, शनि, राहु, केतु, भूत, प्रेत, जिन, किसी की बुरी नजर, घर परिवार या व्यापार में भी मुसीबतें, घर और काम पे वास्तु दोष, सिगरेट, शराब या किसी और नशे की आदत। हल है, मुझसे बात करें। मैं और आप मिलकर ढूंढ लेंगे रास्ते। डोंट वरी, विल फिक्स इट।
ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਰਗਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਪਾਓਗੇ। ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਸੈਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਲਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਖਾਣੇ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੀਕੇ ਪੱਤਣ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦਿਵਾਏਗੀ, ਸਾਗ ਤੇ ਮੱਕੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਏਗੀ। ਚਾਹੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਖਾਣੇ ਖਾਓ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਨॉन ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਉਠਾਓ, ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਆਓ। ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
Welcome back. Now joining us, we have Miss Monica DeLaury. Welcome, Miss DeLaury. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Monica DeLaury, and I am a working mom, of course. I love my job. We've been in Canada almost 16 years now. Yeah, so we came back in 2006 over here.
Welcome to our show today. We're talking a little bit about what it's like for children here or second generation Canadians to grow up with a culture at home and a different culture in the country and trying to keep a balance in between that. But this time I want to take a look at it from the perspective of a parent. So my first question to you is it important for you for your child to have a balance between Canadian culture and their culture at home?
I guess for me, as being a parent, it's a different perspective. When I say culture for me means morals. So it doesn't mean just culture. I guess what morals we give to our children, that's what it matters. Definitely there is a shift in culture or morals, you can say, when we move from another country to Canada. And yes, the kids and the parents, obviously, both of them should know how to definitely make the balance between the culture from what they came from and what they're adapting now to the new culture.
Yeah, I think that's very important. You know, a lot of parents often feel that the culture here isn't that important to embrace, and that's why I want to do this episode. My second question to you is, as a parent, is it easy accepting that maybe your child has a different view than you?
Definitely, I would say yes. As I mentioned, it's for both the parties to, realize that we're moving a shift from another country to another country. So it's not just the kids that should be adapting to the new culture, but obviously the parents should be prepared for that as well. When we talk about kids being more, adapting to the culture, I would say it's more to be friends with them instead of being, in front of them and forcing them to look around and see like, oh no, this is not what you're here for. You are here for something different. So I guess letting them adapt to the environment, letting them adapt to the new culture, we as parents should be more adjusting than the kids. I would rather say that.
That's a very good point, especially the point you make about we've come to this new country. I think it's very easy to forget that we're in a different place now, and it's important to also embrace that. What's the most challenging aspect of a cultural gap between a parent and a child?
Again, I wouldn't say culture, I would say morals. So yes, definitely, I would say there's a big gap in between the morals that, in India, because we kind of come from mostly joint families, or anywhere around the country. When we come to Canada, we mostly come from joint families. We have different people taking care of our kids. Over here, the kids understand that both my parents would be working. So obviously it's hard for us to connect with them all the time, as we had the time back home, but here we don't have that much time to connect with the kids. So sometimes it does become a big gap in trying to make them understand the real reason why they're here. It's not just because we want to move them from a different culture to a different country or to a different adaptation. I think it's more important to make them realize we're here to make them feel comfortable, to give them a better life, for sure, because that's why we're working hard. So once we clear that gap between the trust that we built with our kids, it definitely becomes easy for both of us to understand. So we can understand their needs, and they can understand why our parents, are not paying attention to us, or they're not kind of giving us the same attention that they had in back home. So that's very important for sure as well.
I really like that point you made. I don't think children here understand that our parents aren't explaining things to us because they just don't have the time, and maybe their parents had that time. How can parents help kids feel like they're allowed to embrace more than their culture? I know a lot of children in my life, or in friends in my life, have been a little afraid to try new things just because they're afraid to disappoint their parents.
Divya, as I mentioned in the beginning as well, we keep saying that we should be friends with our kids, right? But I think it's more than being having the trust. So even being a parent, you can have and form or create that trust between you and your child. So it's been easy for me. So as I mentioned, we came here in 2006, and both my kids were obviously not big enough to understand, the difference between the culture that we had in India or wherever we come from and the culture that we adapt in Canada. But when I was more, I would say I had that trust in them to have them feel comfortable to share anything with me. And I would always put myself into their shoes and think, and okay, why are they thinking this way? So that made their life easy. And as times passed, they grew up, they became teenagers, and now they're grown-ups like 27 and 24. So obviously it made a huge difference. And as I mentioned, I was more of a trust person to them instead of being just a friend. So that trust that I built between my kids obviously, helped them as well to grow in this country. And then at the same time, it wasn't easy for us as well when we came here, right? So to, fill that gap, it was more important to build that trust. So I guess it's just easy when both, both parties or both people understand the trust and the importance of trust.
It's very good advice. What advice can you give parents that are maybe not as open as you and are having a very hard time accepting that their child is different than them?
So obviously every parent has a different way of raising their kids. There's no particular advice that one parent can give to another parent, because trust me, every parent wishes the best for all their kids. It's just different ways that we have to express our kids that we definitely mean the best for them. So sometimes it's just the expressing part that I think we need to focus on, that if we are able to at least make the kids understand that we definitely have our full trust on them, and then they can trust us for anything they want. So once that, relationship is built between the parents and the child or the kid, I think all the problems would just be solved, unless and until we step back and think that we have brought them here for a different reason. So bringing them over here and giving them a change in culture is definitely something that they need time to adapt as well. And then we as parents, we need to give ourselves time and step back and think, is this what we wanted for our kids? Is this the life that we want to give them? And then if the answer is yes, then obviously sit down, talk to them. There's always solutions with conversations. And I think that's where we lack as parents. We think this is not the right time, or we're not close enough to them. So just build a trust, though. That's the biggest key point to having a successful, life over here from where you come from.
No, I really like that point and this main theme of trust. I think a lot of the time parents have this best interest in mind and they want to parent, and they forget that maybe they can also be a friend and be a parent at the same time, and that this trust bond is very important for both them and their child to know that it exists. Thank you for your time today and all your insight. It was very helpful, and I hope some parents watching today and some children watching today can have a little bit easier time understanding each other. I will look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'm glad you brought this up with the parents as well, because it's always the children who get an opportunity to speak about everything. I guess it's really good that you guys initiated to talk about this to the parents as well. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਰਗਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਪਾਓਗੇ। ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਸੈਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਲਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਖਾਣੇ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੀਕੇ ਪੱਤਣ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦਿਵਾਏਗੀ, ਸਾਗ ਤੇ ਮੱਕੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਏਗੀ। ਚਾਹੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਖਾਣੇ ਖਾਓ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਉਠਾਓ, ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਆਓ। ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
काव्या होम्यो केयर, काफी इलाज जहां बेअसर हो जाते हैं वहां से शुरू होता है होम्योपैथी का असर। बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक, नए से लेकर कई पुरानी बीमारियों तक, जैसे एलर्जीज, एस्मा, आर्थराइटिस, हेयर लॉस, स्किन डिसऑर्डर्स, माइग्रेन्स, मेल या फीमेल हेल्थ इश्यूज, डाइजेस्टिव डिसऑर्डर्स या पाइल्स, मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज, हार्ट प्रॉब्लम, डायबिटीज और फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्यूट और क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस हमारे होम्योपैथ से मिले, जिनको 20 साल का लंबा तजुर्बा है। काव्या होम्यो केयर, जहां से शुरू होता है हेल्दी लाइफ का सफर। 6477602779। काव्या होम्यो केयर।
जिंदगी मुश्किल तो है, मंगल, शनि, राहु, केतु, भूत, प्रेत, जिन्न, किसी की बुरी नजर, घर परिवार या व्यापार में भी मुसीबतें, घर और काम पे वास्तु दोष, सिगरेट, शराब या किसी और नशे की आदत। हल है, मुझसे बात करें, मैं और आप मिलकर ढूंढ लेंगे रास्ते। डोंट वरी, विल फिक्स इट।
Welcome back. It's hard for ethnic people to keep a balance between cultures, but it's also hard for parents to understand this cultural gap and to adapt. So I hope this episode helps us understand each other better and maybe even start a conversation at home.